She sat on the curb with her entire life in trash bags, mascara running like rain, discarded by the only family she'd ever known. Then the sky split open with jet engines, and the most powerful man in the world stepped out beside the one man who'd always known her worth. She sat on the curb with her entire life in trash bags, mascara running like rain, discarded by the only family she'd ever known. Then the sky split open with jet engines, and the most powerful man in the world stepped out beside the one man who'd always known her worth. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Welcome back, my beautiful family. Before we begin, please click subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more thrilling stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's get into the story. 6 hours earlier, Zara Chun had been standing in her bedroom, though it had never really felt like her bedroom, methodically folding clothes she bought with her own money from her part-time job at the campus library. Her hands trembled as she creased a thrift store blouse, pressing it flat against the bed with more force than necessary, as if she could iron out the chaos of the last 48 hours through sheer will. The room was beautiful in that sterile, catalog-perfect way. Cream walls, white furniture, a single-frame photo of the Whitmore family on the nightstand. Zara always slightly apart from the others, her smile just a fraction too tight. She'd lived in this room for 15 years, since she was 8 years old, and she'd never been allowed to paint the walls or hang posters or do any of the things that would have made it hers. We maintain a certain aesthetic in this home, Zara, her adoptive mother, Christine Whitmore, had said when young Zara asked if she could put up a drawing she'd made in art class, perhaps in the playroom. There was no playroom. There never had been. Now, at 23, Zara was packing everything she owned into 2 suitcases and a duffel bag, plus the trash bag she grabbed from under the kitchen sink when she realized how little she actually possessed. 15 years in this house, and her entire existence fit into containers meant for garbage. The irony wasn't lost on her. Are you still here? Zara's spine stiffened at the voice. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She knew that particular blend of irritation and disdain that colored her adoptive sister's tone. "I'll be gone in 20 minutes, Madison," Zara said quietly, continuing to fold. Mom said 10. Madison Whitmore leaned against the doorframe, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone case. At 25, Madison had the kind of effortless beauty that came from good genes, better skincare, and the absolute certainty that the world would arrange itself to her liking. Honestly, I don't know why you're being so dramatic about this. It's not like you didn't see it coming. Zara's hand stilled on a pair of jeans. "See it coming," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh, come on." Madison pushed off the doorframe, sauntering into the room like she owned it. She did, technically. After today, this would probably become her home office or yoga studio or whatever Madison decided she needed. Blair's been planning to move back from London for months. We need the space. You're 23, you have a degree, you have that? Boyfriend. The way Madison said the word made it sound like something faintly distasteful. It's time you stood on your own feet. I've been standing on my own feet since I got here, Zara said, finally turning to face her sister. Former sister. Whatever Madison was to her now. I paid for my own college. I've been working since I was 16. I've never asked this family for anything, except a place to live, food, clothes when you were younger. Madison examined her nails. Really, Zara, you should be grateful we took you in at all. Do you know how many families passed on you in foster care? Mom said you were almost aged out of the system when they found you. The words landed like physical blows, each one designed for maximum damage. Madison had always known exactly where to strike. Get out, Zara said softly. Excuse me? Get out. Zara's voice didn't rise, but something in it made Madison's eyes narrow. You've made your point. I'm leaving. You're getting your house back. But I don't have to listen to you rewrite history while I pack. For a moment, Madison looked like she might argue. Then she shrugged, already bored. Whatever. Just be gone before Blair's welcome dinner tonight. Mom's having it catered. She left, her footsteps clicking down the hallway with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned whether she belonged. Zara's hands were shaking again. She pressed them flat against the bed, taking deep breaths the way her therapist had taught her. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. It didn't help. The tears came hot and fast, though she tried to hold them back. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry, wouldn't give them the satisfaction, but her body betrayed her. 15 years. 15 years of trying to be perfect, trying to be grateful, trying to earn a love that was always conditional. 15 years of we're so proud of you in public and don't make a scene in private. 15 years of being introduced as our adopted daughter, with just enough emphasis on adopted to make sure everyone knew she wasn't really theirs. And now Blair, the biological daughter who'd been sent to elite boarding schools in Europe, who'd been too important to live with them full time, was coming home, and there wasn't room for both of them. There had never been room for Zara. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it, hoping irrationally that it might be Christine, telling her this was all a mistake, that they wanted her to stay. Julian just landed in Singapore. Meeting ran long. I'll call you tonight. Miss you. Everything okay? Zara stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Julian Chun, no relation, despite the shared surname, had been the one bright spot of her life for the past 2 years. They'd met at a scholarship gala at her university, both of them in the cheap seats, both of them looking vaguely uncomfortable in formal wear. He'd made her laugh with a whispered commentary about the overblown speeches. She'd challenged him to see who could create the most elaborate backstory for each of the donors in attendance. She'd thought he was another scholarship kid like her. It wasn't until their third date that she'd learned the truth. Julian Chun was a 30-year-old tech entrepreneur worth more money than she could conceptualize. He'd come to that gala incognito, taking a break from the crushing pressure of being one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. He'd stayed because of her. Now, 2 years later, Julian knew about her complicated family situation. He'd offered to help, to intervene, to do something. But Zara had always stopped him. These were her demons to face, her battle to fight. She didn't want to be saved. She wanted to be strong enough to save herself. But right now, packing her life into trash bags while her adoptive family erased her from their history, Zara didn't feel strong. She felt exactly like the unwanted foster kid. She'd always been underneath the good grades and perfect manners. She typed out 3 different responses and deleted them all. Finally, Zara, everything's fine. Good luck with your meeting. Talk tonight. She put the phone face down on the bed before she could see if he responded. 23 minutes later, Zara was dragging her bags down the sweeping marble staircase of the Whitmore estate. Her arms ached. No one came to help her. Christine Whitmore was in the living room, on the phone with the caterer, gesturing emphatically about flower arrangements. She glanced up as Zara struggled past with her luggage, then returned to her conversation without a word. Zara's adoptive father, Richard Whitmore, was in his study. The door was closed. It was always closed. She made it to the front door and stopped, looking back one last time at the house that had never been a home. The crystal chandelier. The family photos lining the hallway, Blair and Madison at various ages, radiant and confident. A few token pictures, including Zara, always slightly out of focus, slightly to the side. Zara. She turned. Christine had ended her call and was standing at the entrance to the living room, perfectly put together in cream silk and pearls. For a wild moment, Zara thought her adoptive mother might say something kind, might thank her for the years of trying, might express even a sliver of regret. Leave your key on the table, Christine said, and the garage code. We'll be changing it, but I'd prefer you not have access in the interim. Zara's throat closed. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and pulled the house key from her keychain with numb fingers. She set it on the marble table by the door, next to a vase of white roses that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. Christine, she started, then stopped. What was there to say? What could she possibly say that would make this woman see her as human? I hope you've arranged somewhere to stay, Christine continued, examining her manicure. I assume that boyfriend of yours is room. Given his resources, there it was, the real resentment. Julian had invited the whole family to dinner once, About 6 months ago, trying to bridge the divide. He'd been gracious and charming, but the Whitmores had done their research by then. They knew exactly who and what he was. And they couldn't stand that Zara, their charity case, their good deed, had somehow attracted the attention of someone so far above their own social tier. "I'll be fine," Zara managed. "I'm sure you will be." Christine's smile was ice cold. "You are always very resourceful. It's probably for the best, Zara. Blair needs to be comfortable, and this arrangement was always meant to be temporary. You understand." "Temporary," Zara echoed. 15 years. Well, Christine waved a hand dismissively. "You aged out of the system under our roof. We did fulfill our commitment. Now it's time for you to build your own life. Isn't that what young people want? Independence." Behind Christine, Madison appeared, watching the scene with barely concealed satisfaction. "Goodbye, Zara," Christine said with finality. It wasn't a farewell. It was a dismissal. Zara picked up her bags and walked out the door. 3,000 miles away, Julian Chun sat in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the Singapore skyline, only half listening to a presentation about market expansion in Southeast Asia. His phone was face up on the table in front of him, and he'd checked it approximately 15 times in the last 20 minutes. Everything's fine. Those 2 words had been bothering him for the past hour. He'd known Zara long enough to understand her vocabulary of deflection. Fine meant the opposite. Fine meant she was hurting and didn't want to burden him with it. He'd been expecting something to happen with the Whitmore family for weeks now. Zara had been increasingly stressed, increasingly withdrawn. She'd mentioned her sister Blair returning from London. She'd mentioned offhand that her room might be reassigned. She'd said it casually, like it was no big deal, but Julian had heard the tremor in her voice. He'd wanted to fly home immediately, to be there for whatever was coming. But Zara had insisted he keep his commitments. "I can handle this," she'd said. "I need to handle this myself." Julian had learned early in their relationship that Zara's independence was sacred to her. When you spend your childhood being shuttled between homes, being told you were a burden, being reminded constantly that your place was conditional, you developed a fierce need to prove you didn't need anyone. He'd respected that. He'd given her space. But "fine," followed by radio silence, didn't sit well with him. "Mr. Chun?" Julian looked up. The entire conference table was staring at him. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?" His executive assistant, David, gave him a knowing look. "We were asking about your thoughts on the timeline for the Jakarta office opening." Julian forced himself to focus. "Push it back 2 months. I want our infrastructure solid before we expand." "Marcus is right." He nodded at us. "Oh, we're not ready yet." The meeting continued. Julian participated, made decisions, did all the things a CEO was supposed to do. But part of his mind was still on that text message, on the silence that had followed, on the growing certainty that something was very wrong. When the meeting finally ended, he was on his phone before the conference room door had fully closed. "Call Zara," he commanded. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. "Hey, this is Zara. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." That cheerful recording, made back when she still believed her adoptive family might accept her, when she still had hope, felt like a ghost. "Z, it's me," Julian said, walking toward his temporary office. "I know you said everything's fine, but call me back. Please, whenever you can. I'm here." He hung up and immediately tried again. Voicemail. Something cold settled in his chest. He pulled up his messages and found Mei Zhang, Zara's best friend from college, the one person Zara actually let in. He typed quickly, "Julian, have you heard from Zara today? She's not picking up," and her last message seemed off. The response came within seconds. "May, call me. Now." Julian's stomach dropped. He hit the call button. "What happened?" he demanded when May answered. "They threw her out." May's voice was tight with fury. "This morning. The whole family. Her stuff is literally in trash bags, Julian. She's sitting outside that mansion right now like she's garbage they're putting out for collection." The world tilted. Julian gripped the edge of his desk, knuckles white. "What?" "Blair's coming home. They need Zara's room. Christine told her she had until noon to be gone. May's voice cracked. She won't call you. I've been with her for the past hour trying to convince her, but Julian, she's breaking. She thinks she's not worth the trouble. She thinks this proves everything they ever said about her. Julian was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his laptop, gesturing sharply to David through the glass wall. Where is she right now? Still at the house. I'm trying to get her to come to my place, but she won't leave until she's finished packing. She's performing some kind of dignity ritual. Try to prove to them she's leaving on her terms, but Julian, it's killing her to watch them not care. I'm coming home, Julian said flatly. Now, your Singapore meetings. I don't give a damn about Singapore. Have you been in contact with her? Is she answering your calls? Yeah, we're texting. But Julian, she made me promise not to tell you. She doesn't want you to see her like this. Julian was in the hallway now, David hurrying beside him. Tell her I'm coming anyway. Tell her I don't care if she's angry at you for calling me. Tell her, his voice caught. Tell her she's not alone. He hung up and turned to David. Get me home. I don't care what you have to do. Charter, commercial, bribe someone for their seat. I need to be in the air in the next 2 hours. David, who'd been with Julian long enough to know when not to argue, was already on his phone. I'll call the pilot. We could be wheels up in 90 minutes if we skip the flight plan formalities. Do it. What would you do if someone you loved was in crisis but too proud to ask for help? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear your stories. Zara made it exactly 15 feet past the state gates before her legs gave out. She'd rolled her suitcases down the pristine brick driveway with her head high, shoulders back, every bit of her performance major training channeled into portraying a woman who was leaving by choice. She felt the eyes on her, Christine watching from the upstairs window, Madison silhouette in the doorway, even the landscapers pausing their work to witness the spectacle. She'd kept it together through all of it. But once the iron gates clicked shut behind her, once she was officially outside the boundaries of the only home she'd known for 15 years, her body simply stopped cooperating. She sank onto the curb, her designer luggage, a graduation gift from Julian that had made Christine's lips purse with disapproval, arranged around her like a barricade. The trash bag sagged against her leg. One had split, and she could see the corner of her childhood teddy bear poking through, the one possession she'd been allowed to bring from her last foster home. The sun was merciless. It was barely 1 in the afternoon, and the July heat pressed down on her like a weight. Sweat mixed with the mascara she'd carefully applied that morning, back when she still had a bedroom, still had some illusion of belonging. A car drove past. Then another. The Whitmore estate was in Thornbury Heights, where the houses cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, and the neighbors valued privacy above all else. But not so much privacy that they wouldn't slow down to stare at the spectacle of a young woman sitting on a curb surrounded by trash bags. Zara recognized the silver Mercedes. Mrs. Chun, no relation to Julian, who'd complimented her dress at the Whitmore's Christmas party last year. The woman's eyes met Zara's through the window. Then she looked away and accelerated. The message was clear. Whatever drama was unfolding with the Whitmore girl, it wasn't her business. Zara's phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket with numb fingers. May, where are you? I'm 5 minutes out. Stay put. Then another message. May! Julian called me. Zara's stomach dropped. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. Zara, you didn't. May! I absolutely did. And before you get mad, he asked. He knew something was wrong. What was I supposed to do, lie to him? Zara, yes. I told you not to tell him. May, and I told you that was a stupid plan. He loves you, Z. Let him love you. Zara's vision blurred. She dropped the phone onto her lap and pressed the heels of her hands against her eyes, trying to force the tears back through sheer willpower. Let him love you. As if it were that simple. As if she deserved it. As if she wasn't fundamentally broken in some way that made even the people legally obligated to care for her count down the days until they could be rid of her. Her phone rang. Julian's name lit up the screen. She couldn't answer it. Couldn't let him hear her like this. Voice shaking, composure shattered. sitting on a curb like she was waiting for someone to claim her from the lost and found. The ringing stopped. Moments later, a voicemail notification appeared. Zara didn't listen to it. She couldn't bear to hear the concern in his voice, couldn't stand the thought of being one more burden in his already complicated life. Julian Chun had the weight of a global company on his shoulders, hundreds of employees depending on him, meetings with world leaders and tech innovators and people who actually mattered. What was she? A broken foster kid with a psychology degree and a part-time library job. Someone who couldn't even maintain a relationship with a family that had chosen to adopt her. They didn't choose you. A vicious voice whispered in her head. They chose a tax write-off. They chose good publicity. They chose to look charitable. They never chose you. A black SUV pulled up, and Mei Zhang practically fell out of the driver's seat before the vehicle had fully stopped. Jesus Christ, Zara. Mei was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, but she moved with the concentrated fury of someone much larger. She took in the scene, Zara on the curb, the trash bags, the pristine mansion behind her, the way Zara was hunched over like she was trying to disappear into herself. "I'm going in there," Mei announced, starting toward the gates. "I'm going to tell that woman exactly what I think of her and her emotionally bankrupt family." "Mei, don't!" Zara's voice was hoarse. "Please, it won't change anything. It'll make me feel better. It'll make it worse." Zara finally looked up at her best friend. "If you go in there, if you make a scene, it just proves what they already think about me. That I'm dramatic, that I'm ungrateful, that everything has to be about me." Mei's jaw worked. "You know that's garbage, right? You know this is about them being terrible people." "Do I?" Zara laughed, but it came out broken. "Maybe they're right, Mei. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I mean, the foster families before this one didn't want to keep me either. My birth parents didn't want me. Now the Whitmores don't want me. At what point do I accept that the common denominator is me?" "Stop." Mei crouched down in front of her, grabbing Zara's hands. "Stop doing that. Stop letting them rewrite reality. You were 8 years old when you went into foster care because your parents died in a car accident. You didn't do anything wrong. The foster families before this one were overwhelmed or underfunded or deal with their own issues. None of that was about you. And the Whitmores," her grip tightened. "The Whitmores are narcissists who saw you as a prop for their public image. You didn't fail them. They failed you. Then why does it hurt so much?" Zara's voice broke on the last word. "Why do I still want them to love me? What's wrong with me that I'm sitting here hoping Christine will come out that door and say it was all a mistake?" Mei's eyes filled with tears. "Because you have a heart, Z. Because despite everything, you're still capable of loving people who don't deserve it. That's not a weakness. That's the strongest thing about you." Behind them, another car slowed down. This time it was someone with their phone out, clearly recording. The image was irresistible. A young woman surrounded by garbage bags outside a mansion, crying on a curb. By tomorrow, it would probably be on social media. Some caption about entitled rich kids or karma or whatever narrative people wanted to spin. Mei stood up, positioning herself between Zara and the car. "Drive away," she shouted. "Show's over." The car accelerated. "Come on." Mei started grabbing bags. "You're coming to my place. We're going to order terrible takeout, watch movies where everyone gets a happy ending, and you're going to let me take care of you for 5 minutes. Mei. And you're going to call Julian back." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Z, that man is on a plane right now. He's flying across the Pacific Ocean because he can't stand the thought of you hurting alone. The absolute least you can do is let him know you're safe." Zara let Mei pull her to her feet. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else. She looked back at the mansion one more time, at the window where Christine had been standing. It was empty now. They'd already moved on. She was already forgotten. "Okay," Zara whispered. "Okay." Mei loaded the bags into her SUV with efficient anger, muttering under her breath about emotionally stunted socialites and people who deserve to step on Legos barefoot. Despite everything, Zara felt the smallest smile tug at her lips. She had Mei. She had Julian, even if she didn't feel worthy of him. Maybe that was enough. It had to be enough. Because sitting on that curb, mascara-streaked and surrounded by the physical evidence of her disposability, Zara had felt something shift inside her. The question wasn't why the Whitmores didn't love her. The question was why she'd spent 15 years trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it. As May's SUV pulled away from Thornbury Heights, Zara didn't look back. She was done looking back. May's apartment was everything the Whitmore mansion wasn't. Small, cluttered with life, warm. Mismatched throw pillows covered a sagging couch. Books were stacked on every available surface. The walls were covered in photos. Friends, family, moments of actual joy captured and displayed without professional staging. Zara stood in the middle of the living room, still holding her purse, unable to make herself sit down. "Z, you're making me nervous." May emerged from the bedroom where she deposited Zara's bags. "Sit, please. You look like you're about to bolt." "I should go." "Go where exactly?" Zara's mind spun uselessly. "A hotel. I have some money saved." "You're not going to a hotel." May crossed her arms. "You're staying here until you figure out your next move. End of discussion." "May, I can't just—" "You can and you will. Now sit down before you fall down. You haven't eaten anything today, have you?" She hadn't. The thought of food made her nauseous, but May was already in the kitchen, pulling out containers, moving with the purposeful energy of someone who needed to fix something, anything. Zara's phone buzzed for the 15th time. She knew, without looking, it was Julian. He called 4 more times during the drive, left 3 voicemails. Each notification felt like a small accusation. "You're shutting him out. You're doing exactly what you always do." She turned the phone face down on the coffee table. "You're not seriously ignoring him." May called from the kitchen. "I'm not ready to talk to him." "He's worried sick, Z." "And what am I supposed to say?" Zara finally sank onto the couch, her body feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Hi, Julian. Remember how I told you everything was fine? Surprise, I'm homeless. Also, you were right about my family being toxic, and I should have listened to you months ago, but I was too proud and stupid to." "Stop." May appeared with a mug of tea and a plate of crackers and cheese. "First of all, you're not homeless. You have me. And you have Julian, who would give you every single one of his properties if you asked. Second, you weren't proud or stupid. You were hopeful. You wanted to believe they could change. That's not a character flaw." Zara took the tea, but didn't drink it. "He's going to want to fix this. He's going to want to do something dramatic and expensive in public, and I can't." Her voice cracked. "I can't be a charity case for him too, May. I can't be another project for someone to take on. Is that really what you think you are to him?" "I don't know what I am anymore." Zara's hands trembled around the mug. 2 hours ago, I had a family, a home. Now I have garbage bags full of clothes and a best friend's couch and a boyfriend who's probably realizing that I come away too much baggage for someone like him to deal with. May sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Someone like him? Z, do you hear yourself? Julian's not someone like him. He's just Julian. He's the guy who brings you coffee at the library, even though it's completely out of his way. He's a guy who learned to make dumplings from YouTube because you mentioned missing your grandmother's cooking once. He loves you, not some perfect version of you that doesn't need anything." "Everyone has a limit," Zara whispered. "The Whitmores reach theirs. My foster families before them reach theirs. Eventually, Julian will." "No." May's voice was sharp. "We're not doing this. We're not letting them poison you into thinking you're unlovable. The Whitmores are cruel people who treated their adopted daughter like a temporary house guest. That says everything about them and nothing about you." Zara wanted to believe her. God, she wanted to believe her. But the evidence was overwhelming. 15 years of trying to be perfect. Perfect grades, perfect manners, never asking for too much, never taking up too much space, and it still hadn't been enough. Her phone lit up again. This time it was a text. "Julian, Zara, please, just let me know you're okay. One word. Anything." Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She typed, "I'm fine," then deleted it. Julian knew her too well. He'd see through fine in a heartbeat. She tried, "I'm with May." I need some time. Deleted that too. It sounded cold. Dismissive. Finally, I'm safe. I'm sorry. I can't talk right now. She hit send before she could overthink it further. The response was immediate. Julian, don't apologize. Take the time you need. But Z, I'm coming home. I'll be there in about 10 hours. You don't have to see me right away, but I need to be in the same city. Please don't disappear on me. Zara's chest constricted. He was leaving Singapore early, abandoning important meetings, disrupting carefully laid plans, all because she couldn't hold her life together for 1 week while he was gone. Zara, you don't have to do that. Your meetings, Julian, are not more important than you. Nothing is more important than you. I'm already at the airport. She stared at the message, tears blurring the words. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Julian dropping everything, rearranging his entire life, treating her like she was fragile and broken. Because you are broken, the voice whispered. And eventually he's going to get tired of picking up the pieces. What did he say? May asked gently. He's coming home. Good. It's not good, May. He has responsibilities. A company. People depending on him. He can't just... He's choosing you, May interrupted. He's choosing to be there for you. Why is that so hard for you to accept? Because everyone else made their choice too, Zara thought. And I wasn't it. Instead, she said, I don't want to need him. I don't want to be the girlfriend who can't handle her own problems, who falls apart the second things get difficult. Z, your family just threw you out with no warning and no support. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to need people. That's not weakness. That's being human. But Zara had spent her entire childhood learning that needing people made you vulnerable. That asking for help meant giving people power over you. That love was always conditional, always one mistake away from being revoked. She couldn't unlearn that in an afternoon, no matter how much she wanted to. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Julian. It was an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe to accept. Hello. Zara, it's Richard. Her adoptive father's voice made her entire body go rigid. In 15 years, Richard Whitmore had spoken directly to her maybe a dozen times. He was always in his study, always on a call, always somewhere else. What do you want? Her voice came out colder than she'd intended. I wanted to check that you'd settled somewhere. Christine was concerned you might not have made arrangements. The lie was so transparent, it would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Christine Whitmore hadn't been concerned about anything except getting Zara out before Blair's welcome dinner. I'm fine. I have a place to stay. Good. That's good. An awkward pause. Zara, I want you to understand this isn't personal. Blair needs... I understand perfectly. Zara cut him off. Blair needs a room. Your real daughter takes priority. The foster kid was always temporary. Message received loud and clear. That's not you're being unfair. Unfair. She was being unfair. After 15 years of being treated like a guest in their home, she was the one being unfair. Is there anything else? Zara asked, her voice shaking with suppressed emotion. We'd appreciate your discretion about this matter. The family's reputation. Goodbye, Richard. She hung up before he could finish. Her hands were trembling so badly she nearly dropped the phone. What did he want? May demanded, to make sure I'm not going to embarrass them. Zara laughed, but it came out bitter. God forbid anyone find out they discarded their adopted daughter, like yesterday's newspaper. May's expression turned dangerous. I can make sure everyone knows. I have a decent social media following. One post about how the charitable Whitmore family treats their... No. Zara's voice was sharp. Please, May. I just want to disappear. I don't want drama or revenge or... I just want to stop existing in their world entirely. You deserve better than to slink away like you did something wrong. Maybe... Zara pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself small. But I'm so tired of fighting. I'm so tired of trying to prove I'm worth keeping. Can I just be tired for a while? May's anger melted into something softer. Yeah, Z, You could be tired. Outside, the sun was beginning its slow descent toward evening. In 10 hours, Julian would land. In 10 hours, Zara would have to face him, would have to let him see her like this, broken and displaced, and everything she'd never wanted to be. She wasn't ready. She didn't know if she'd ever be ready. Zara woke up on May's couch at 4:47 a.m. to the sound of her phone vibrating against the coffee table. She'd fallen asleep in her clothes sometime around midnight, exhausted from crying and thinking in circles and trying to figure out how her entire life had collapsed in less than 24 hours. The phone screen glowed in the darkness. Julian's name. She let it go to voicemail. Seconds later, a text appeared. Julian, just landed. I know you're probably asleep. I'm at my place to shower and handle a few things, but I'd really like to see you today. When you're ready. No pressure. No pressure. As if anything about this situation wasn't pressure. Zara sat up slowly, her body aching from the tension she'd carried all day. Through the thin walls of May's bedroom, she could hear her friend's soft snoring. The apartment was quiet otherwise, the kind of pre-dawn silence that made everything feel more fragile. She should text Julian back. Should tell him she needed more time, or that she was okay, or something that would ease the worry she could feel radiating through his carefully casual message. Instead, she pulled up her bank account on her phone. $3,847. Her entire life savings. Enough for maybe 2 months of rent in a studio apartment if she found something cheap. Not enough for a security deposit and first and last month's rent. Definitely not enough to feel secure. The psychology degree she'd worked so hard for suddenly felt worthless. Entry-level positions in her field paid barely above minimum wage, and most required an internship she couldn't afford to take. The library job was part-time, flexible around her class schedule, a schedule she no longer had. She was scrolling through apartment listings, her chest getting tighter with each price tag, when May's bedroom door opened. It's not even 5 in the morning, May said, her voice rough with sleep. Why are you torturing yourself with apartment hunting? I can't stay here forever. You've been here for 12 hours, Z. Give yourself a minute. May padded into the kitchen and started making coffee. Julian land yet? About 20 minutes ago. And you still haven't called him. It wasn't a question. Zara pulled a throw blanket around her shoulders. I will. I just need to figure out what I'm going to say first. How about, thank you for coming home early. I'm struggling, but I'm glad you're here. May poured 2 cups of coffee and brought them to the couch. Revolutionary concept. I know. Honest communication. I can't just fall into his arms and let him solve everything for me. Why not? The question hung in the air. Zara wrapped her hands around the coffee mug, absorbing its warmth. Because what happens when he gets tired of being my hero? When the novelty of saving the broken foster kid wears off, and he realizes I'm just broken? You're not broken. May's voice was firm. And Julian's not some white knight, looking for a damsel to rescue. He fell in love with you when he thought you were just another scholarship student. He didn't know about the Whitmores or your past or any of it. He loved you for you. Maybe he loved who I was pretending to be. Or maybe you're so used to performing for people's approval that you can't recognize when someone loves you without conditions. May took a long sip of coffee. You got about 6 hours before Julian shows up here, whether you invite him or not. You know that, right? Zara almost smiled. He wouldn't do that. He absolutely would. The man flew across the Pacific overnight because you were in pain. He's not going to politely wait for an engraved invitation. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a different message. Julian, David's insisting I go over some urgent contracts this morning. Should be done by noon. Meet me for lunch? There's a new dumpling place near your campus. Well, near where your campus was. I'll send you the address. Please say yes. Zara's thumb hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed at her to make an excuse, to buy more time, to put off the inevitable moment when he'd see her like this and realize what a mess he'd gotten himself into. But another part of her, the part that was so tired of being alone, of being strong, of carrying everything by herself, wanted desperately to say yes. Zara, okay, noon. The response was immediate. Julian, Thank you. See you soon. I'm meeting him for lunch, Zara announced, her voice hollow. Good. Now eat something. You haven't had real food since yesterday morning. May got up and started rummaging through her refrigerator. And before you argue, this isn't negotiable. You're eating, you're showering, and you're going to put on something that makes you feel like yourself. Not the performing for the Whitmore self. The real self. Zara wanted to argue, but she was too exhausted. She let May fuss over her, let her friend scramble eggs and toast bread, and create the kind of simple, nourishing meal that the Whitmore house staff would have sneered at. She let May bully her into the shower, let the hot water wash away some of the previous day's devastation. When she emerged, wrapped in one of May's oversized hoodies, her phone was ringing again. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. Don't answer it, May said immediately. If it's them. But Zara was already swiping to accept. Some masochistic part of her needed to hear it. Needed confirmation that yesterday hadn't been some terrible nightmare. Hello, Zara Whitmore? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Just Zara-chin now, I guess. Who is this? This is James Morrison from Morrison & Associates. I'm the Whitmore family's attorney. I'm calling regarding some documentation we need you to sign. Of course they'd send a lawyer. Zara closed her eyes. What kind of documentation? A non-disclosure agreement, primarily. Given your separation from the family, we want to ensure certain private family matters remain confidential. There's also the matter of formalizing the dissolution of the adoption arrangement, now that you've reached legal adulthood and are no longer residing in the family home. Dissolution, like she was a business contract being terminated. And if I don't sign? A pause. I would strongly advise cooperation, Ms. Chan. The Whitmore family has been generous in their support over the years. It would be unfortunate if there were any misunderstandings about the nature of that support. The threat was delicate but clear. Sign, or we'll make things difficult for you. I'll think about it, Zara said, her voice surprisingly steady. The family would prefer this matter resolved quickly. I can meet you this afternoon with the paperwork. I said I'll think about it. She hung up before he could respond. May was staring at her, fury radiating from every inch of her small frame. They sent a lawyer. They actually sent a lawyer to intimidate you into signing an NDA. They want me erased, Zara said numbly. Completely and officially. Like I never existed. You're not signing anything without your own lawyer looking at it first. Actually, you're not signing anything, period. They can't force you to. Can't they? Zara sank back onto the couch. They have money and lawyers and connections. What do I have? A library job and a psychology degree. You have Julian Chan. May sat beside her. Who? In case you've forgotten, probably as better lawyers than the Whitmores could ever dream of hiring. The thought made Zara's stomach turn. I can't drag him into this legal mess. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid, making myself into a project that requires fixing. Z, listen to me. May grabbed her shoulders, forcing eye contact. You meeting Julian for lunch? That's not optional anymore. You need to tell him what's happening. All of it. The lawyer, the NDA, everything. Because the Whitmores are clearly not content with just throwing you out. They want to make sure you can never tell your story. What story? That I was an ungrateful adopted kid who couldn't appreciate what she had. That you were a child they exploited for tax benefits and social capital, then discarded when you were no longer useful. May's voice was fierce. That's the story they don't want told. And that's exactly why you need someone in your corner. Zara's phone buzzed. Another text from Julian. Julian, looking forward to seeing you. I've missed your face. Something in her chest cracked open. She'd spent all night convincing herself that she needed to push him away, that loving her was too complicated, too messy. But sitting in May's apartment at 6 in the morning with the lawyers, threats ringing in her ears, Zara realized something. She didn't want to do this alone anymore. She was terrified of needing him, terrified of being vulnerable, terrified that letting him see her like this would be the beginning of the end. But she was more terrified of facing the Whitmore's lawyers alone, of signing away her truth, of disappearing quietly like she'd never mattered at all. Zara, I've missed yours too. See you at noon. There's some stuff I need to tell you. Julian, whatever it is, we'll handle it. Together. Together. The word felt foreign and frightening, and somehow exactly right. I'm going to tell him everything, Zara said quietly. May squeezed her hand. Good. It's about damn time. The dumpling restaurant was small and unpretentious, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner on a street near campus that Zara had walked down 100 times. She arrived 10 minutes early, her hands shaking as she pushed through the door. Julian was already there, sitting at a corner table with his back to the wall, a habit from years of being recognized in public, of needing to control his environment. But when he saw her, everything else seemed to fall away. He stood so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. For a moment they just looked at each other across the small restaurant, and Zara saw everything she'd been afraid to see. Worry, relief, love that didn't waver despite the mess she'd become. Then she was moving, and he was moving, and they met in the middle of the restaurant like gravity had pulled them together. Julian's arms wrapped around her, and Zara finally let herself break. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "I've got you, Z. You're okay." But she wasn't okay. She was sobbing into his shoulder in the middle of a dumpling restaurant, while curious patrons pretended not to stare. She was everything she'd promised herself she wouldn't be. Weak, needy, falling apart. And Julian just held her tighter. "Come on," he said gently, guiding her back to the table. He positioned himself so his body blocked the view of most of the restaurant, giving her privacy even in public. It was such a Julian thing to do, protected without being possessive, caring without making her feel fragile. Zara wiped at her face with a napkin, trying to pull herself together. "I'm sorry. I promised myself I wouldn't do this." "Don't." His voice was firm but gentle. He reached across the table and took her hands. "Don't apologize for having feelings. Don't apologize for being human." She looked down at their joined hands. His were steady, warm, real. Hers were still trembling. "They threw me out," she said quietly, "yesterday morning. Christine told me I had until noon to pack my things and leave. Blair's coming home from London, and they need my room." Julian's jaw clenched, the only outward sign of the fury she could feel radiating from him. "Tell me everything." So she did. She told him about Madison's casual cruelty, about Christine's cold dismissal, about sitting on the curb with trash bags while neighbors drove past. She told him about Richard's phone call, about the lawyer who wanted her to sign an NDA. And then, because the floodgates were open and she couldn't seem to stop, she told him things she'd never said out loud. Things she'd buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself they didn't matter. "I was 8 when they adopted me," Zara heard herself say. "Did I ever tell you why I was in foster care?" Julian shook his head, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "My parents, my birth parents, died in a car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light." The words came out flat, emotionless, the way they always did when she talked about it. "I was in the back seat. I survived with barely a scratch. They didn't." She could see Julian processing this, understanding clicking into place. "Z, I had no idea. I don't talk about it. The Whitmores didn't want to talk about it. It made people uncomfortable at their dinner parties, you know? The tragic backstory." She laughed, but it was hollow. "I went through 3 foster homes in 2 years. Good people, mostly, but overwhelmed. Not equipped to handle a grieving kid with attachment issues and nightmares." 8-year-old Zara sitting in a social worker's office, clutching the teddy bear her mother had given her for her 7th birthday. "Am I going to another family?" "We're trying, sweetheart. We're trying to find the right fit." "Then the Whitmores came along," Zara continued. "They seemed perfect. Big house, stable income, 2 other children who could be siblings. Christine said she'd always wanted to help a child in need." Her voice turned bitter. What she meant was she wanted the social capital of being seen as charitable. The Whitmores were new money trying to buy their way into old money circles. An adopted daughter was the ultimate accessory. Proof they were good people. Julian's grip on her hands tightened. "I tried so hard to be what they wanted. The memories were flooding back now, unstoppable. I got straight A's. I never asked for anything. I made myself small and quiet and perfect. When Madison would take my things or Blair would forget to include me in family photos when she visited, I didn't complain. When Christine would introduce me as our adopted daughter, with just enough emphasis to make sure everyone knew I wasn't really theirs, I smiled. 12-year-old Zara at the Whitmore's annual Christmas party, wearing a dress Christine had chosen. Say hello to the Hendersons, Zara. And remember, shoulders back, smile, don't monopolize the conversation. Later, overhearing Christine on the phone, "Oh, Zara's doing wonderfully. So grateful for everything we've given her. It's so rewarding, giving back to a child in need. I thought if I was perfect enough, eventually they'd forget I was adopted," Zara said. "Eventually I'd just be their daughter. Not the foster kid they took in. Not the charity case. Just theirs. Z." But I never was. Even after 15 years, I was still temporary. Still conditional. Still, her voice broke. Still not worth keeping. Julian stood abruptly and moved to her side of the table, sliding into Booth beside her and pulling her against his chest. "Listen to me," he said fiercely. "What they did to you, what they've been doing to you for 15 years, that's about their capacity for love, not your worthiness of it. You are not temporary. You are not conditional. You are not disposable. How can you say that?" Zara's voice was muffled against his shirt. "Everyone who was supposed to love me. I love you." The words were quiet, but absolute. "I love you, Zarchin. Not because you're perfect or grateful or small. I love you because you're brilliant and kind and brave enough to keep hoping even when people keep breaking your heart. I love you because when we met at that gala, you saw me. Just me, not my bank account or my company or what I could do for you. You saw me. 2 years ago, the scholarship gala. Zara in a thrift store dress she'd altered herself, sitting in the back row because all the good seats were taken. A man sliding into the seat beside her, slightly rumpled, tie loosened. "Is it always this boring?" he'd whispered. "Only when they talk," she whispered back. "So always." He'd laughed, and something had sparked. "I didn't know who you were," Zara said now, remembering. "When we met, I thought you were another scholarship student." "I know. That's why I kept coming back." Julian pulled away just enough to look at her. "Do you remember our third date? When you finally Googled me and found out?" She did. She'd been mortified. Had assumed he'd been laughing at her the whole time, amusing himself with a poor girl who didn't recognize a billionaire. "You called me in a panic," Julian continued, a small smile touching his lips despite the heaviness of the conversation. "Said you couldn't see me anymore because you weren't in my league and you didn't want to be some kind of charity project. You showed up at my apartment at midnight with dumplings," Zara remembered. "And I told you that you thought I was the kind of person who saw human beings as charity projects. Then you didn't know me at all." His hands framed her face, gentle but insistent. "That hasn't changed, Z. You're not a project to me. You're not something I'm trying to fix. You're the person I choose every single day. The person I want to build a life with." The words hit her like a physical force. "Julian, I know you're not ready to hear this right now," he said. "I know you're hurt and scared, and you think you need to be strong all by yourself. But I need you to understand something. Letting me love you isn't weakness. Letting me stand beside you while you deal with this nightmare isn't failure. It's what people who love each other do." Zara wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But the voice in her head, the one that sounded like Christine, like every social worker who'd ever called her a difficult placement, like her own deepest fears, kept whispering, "He'll leave too. Eventually, everyone leaves. The lawyer," she said, changing the subject because this was too much, too overwhelming. "The Whitmore's lawyer called this morning. They want to sign an NDA. They want to formalize the dissolution of the adoption arrangement." Julian's expression went cold. What exactly did he say? She repeated the conversation as best she could remember. With each word, Julian's jaw got tighter. "They're trying to silence you," he said flatly. "They're trying to make sure you can never tell anyone how they treated you. Maybe I should just sign it." The words came out small. Let them erase me. Move on with my life. No. The single word was steal. Absolutely not. Z, you don't sign anything without a lawyer, your own lawyer, reviewing it first. And you definitely don't sign away your right to tell your own story just because people who hurt you want to control the narrative. I can't afford a lawyer, Julian. I can barely afford. Then we'll get you one. We'll get you the best lawyers in the state, if that's what it takes. And there it was, the inevitable moment when Julian's money solved the problem that her lack of it had created. Zara pulled away from him, sliding to the end of the booth. I can't let you do that. Why not? Because she struggled to articulate the tangle of pride and fear and shame. Because then I'm exactly what Christine always said I was. Someone who latches onto people with resources. Someone who takes and never gives back. Julian looked at her for a long moment. Is that really what you think you do? I don't know what I think anymore. He reached across the space between them, not touching, just offering. Zara, look at me. She did. You give me everything that matters, he said quietly. You give me honesty in a world full of people telling me what they think I want to hear. You give me laughter and perspective, and someone who sees past the money to who I actually am. You give me a reason to come home. That's not taking. That's not being a burden. That's love. The tears came again, but softer this time. I'm so scared, she whispered. I know, but you don't have to be scared alone. How do you think Zara should handle the Whitmore family's legal threats? Would you stand up to them or walk away quietly? Let me know in the comments. They ordered dumplings they barely touched and sat in that corner booth for 2 hours, talking a way they never had before. No performance. No pretending. Just raw, honest truth. Julian told her about the pressure of building a company at 25, about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted something from you, about the relief of meeting someone who'd argue with him about the best Marvel movie, without knowing he could buy the entire franchise. Zara told him about the nightmares she still had sometimes, not a car accident that killed her parents, but of being left behind in empty houses, always packing, always temporary. I have this recurring dream, she admitted, pushing a dumpling around her plate. I'm trying to make myself smaller, literally folding myself up like origami, trying to fit into smaller and smaller spaces. And there's this voice saying, if you can just be small enough, quiet enough, they'll let you stay. Julian's hand found hers across the table. You don't have to be small anymore. I don't know how to be anything else. Then we'll figure out together. He paused. Will you come back to my place? Not, he added quickly, seeing her expression, not to stay permanently or because I'm trying to solve everything, but because May's apartment is tiny and you need space to breathe, and I have 17 bedrooms I never use. Despite everything, Zara almost laughed. 17? Okay, 8. But the point stands. You can have your own space, your own room, hell, your own wing if you want it. No pressure, no expectations. Just somewhere safe while you figure out your next move. She wanted to say yes. Wanted so badly it physically hurt. But, Julian, I can't just move into your house. People will think that you're my girlfriend staying with me while you deal with a family crisis. He raised an eyebrow. Because that's exactly what this is. It's more complicated than that. Only if we make it complicated. He squeezed her hand. Look, I get it. You're worried about optics, about what people will think, about being dependent. But Z, you've been carrying everything alone for so long. Can you just let me help? Not because you need rescuing, but because you shouldn't have to face this by yourself. Zara looked at their joined hands. When had that stopped feeling foreign? When had his touch become the thing that grounded her instead of the thing that scared her? Okay, she whispered. Okay, but just for a few days. Until I figure out what I'm doing. The relief on Julian's face was palpable. A few days. We can work with that. Julian's house, mansion, really, though he hated when people called it that, was in the hills overlooking the city. Modern architecture. All glass and clean lines, and spaces that felt open rather than cavernous. Nothing like the Whitmore estate, with its oppressive formality. Guest room is upstairs, Julian said as they walked to the foyer. Second door on the right. But there's also a suite on the ground floor if you don't want to deal with stairs. Or the pool house is basically a separate apartment. Or, Julian. Zara stopped him with a hand on his arm. Breathe. Any room is fine. They're all nicer than May's couch. He laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Right. Sorry. I'm not usually this nervous in my own house. You're nervous? Terrified, he admitted. I keep thinking I'm going to say the wrong thing or push too hard or not enough, and you're going to bolt and I'll lose you. The honesty of it cracked something open in Zara's chest. She'd been so focused on her own fear, her own vulnerability. She hadn't considered that Julian might be scared too. I'm not going to bolt, she said quietly. Promise? I promised to try not to bolt. It was the most honesty she could offer. He seemed to accept that. Come on, I'll show you around. The house was beautiful, but lived in. Books everywhere. A kitchen that actually looked used. A music room with a piano and guitar. Zara found herself relaxing incrementally with each room that felt like Julian rather than a showpiece. This is you, she said, running her fingers over a bookshelf packed with sci-fi novels and programming textbooks. The real you, the one you met at that gala. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her explore. The guy who's really just a nerd who got lucky with some code. Lucky and brilliant. I'll take it. He checked his phone. I have a video call in 20 minutes that I can't reschedule. Conference with the Tokyo office. But after that, I'm all yours. Make yourself at home, okay? Kitchen is fully stocked. There's a home theater downstairs. Pool outside. Anything you want. After he disappeared into his office, Zara stood in the middle of the living room, feeling untethered. The space was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, comfortable furniture that invited you to actually sit, art that had been chosen for meaning rather than matching the decor. It was the opposite of the Whitmore house in every way. She found herself wandering, opening doors, mapping the space. The guest room Julian had mentioned was gorgeous. King-size bed, attached bathroom, a balcony overlooking the pool. Her trash bags and suitcases looked obscene in such a refined space, like evidence of crime. She unpacked methodically, hanging clothes in the massive closet, setting her few toiletries in the marble bathroom. The teddy bear from her childhood went on the nightstand, a small act of defiance. She existed here. She was allowed to take up space. Her phone rang. May, tell me you didn't do anything stupid like check into a roach motel. May demanded without preamble. I'm at Julian's. A pause. Good. That's good, Z. How are you holding up? I don't know. I feel like I'm in someone else's life. Zara sank onto the bed. This morning I was on your couch eating scrambled eggs. Now I'm in a guest room that's bigger than my entire dorm room was. Nothing feels real. That's the shock. It'll pass. May's voice softened. Did you tell him? Everything. Most of it. The important parts. And he wants to help. He wants to get me lawyers and fight the Whitmores and... Zara's voice caught. And he keeps saying I'm not a burden, but May, how can I not be? I'm literally homeless. I have nothing to offer him except problems. You're offering him your trust, May said firmly, which, given your history, is probably the most valuable thing you could give anyone. Stop measuring your worth in terms of what you can provide materially. You're not a transaction, Z. You're a person, and Julian loved that person. Zara wanted to argue, but she was too tired. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You've just been too stubborn to listen. A pause. Seriously, though, are you okay? Do you need me to come over? No. I think I need to try being here. Try letting someone take care of me for once. Miracles do happen. May's smile was audible. Call me later. And Z, I'm proud of you. After they hung up, Zara sat in the quiet of the guest room, letting herself feel everything she'd been pushing away. The grief of losing her family, even a family that had never truly claimed her. The fear of an uncertain future. The tentative, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd found someone who wouldn't leave. A soft knock on the door. Julian. Leaning against the frame, tie loosened and sleeves rolled up, calls done. Want to watch something terrible and eat ice cream directly from the container? I think I have 3 flavors. It was such a normal suggestion, such a simple offer comfort, and somehow that made Zara's eyes well up again. Hey, Julian said, crossing the room immediately. What's wrong? Too much? We don't have to. Nothing's wrong. Zara wiped at her eyes, laughing through the tears. That's the problem. Nothing's wrong. You're being kind and patient and offer me ice cream, and I don't know how to process that. He sat beside her on the bed, careful to leave space. How about we just exist for a while? No processing required. No big conversations or decisions. Just 2 people watching a movie and eating too much sugar. That sounds perfect, Zara whispered. Yeah. They ended up in a home theater, a room with actual reclining chairs and a screen that took up an entire wall. Julian queued up something mindless and comforting, one of those movies they'd both seen a dozen times. The kind you didn't have to think about. Zara found herself curled into his side, his arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest. The steady rhythm of his heartbeat grounded her. The ice cream was mint chocolate chip, her favorite, though she'd only mentioned it once months ago. He remembered. Julian, she said during a quiet moment in the film. Thank you. For all of this. For coming home early. For not making me feel like I'm crazy for being a mess. His arm tightened around her. You're not a mess, Z. You're dealing with trauma and betrayal, and a family that failed you spectacularly. If anything, I'm impressed you're functioning at all. I don't feel like I'm functioning. You're here. You're trying. That's enough. They fell silent again, the movie playing in the background. For the first time in 48 hours, Zara felt something like peace. Not happiness. She wasn't ready for that yet. But safety, security, the sense that maybe she wasn't facing this alone. I could get used to this, she admitted quietly. She felt Julian smile against her hair. Good, because I'm not planning on letting you go anytime soon. Outside, the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Inside, in the darkness of the theater, 2 people held each other and pretended, just for a few hours, that the world outside didn't exist. It was enough. For now, it was enough. Zara woke up in Julian's guest room to 17 missed calls and a series of increasingly aggressive text messages. She fumbled for her phone, squinting at the screen in the early morning light filtering through the curtains. All from the same unknown number. Unknown. Ms. Chun, this is James Morrison. We need to finalize the documentation today. Unknown. The Whitmore family is prepared to offer compensation for your signature. $50,000 upon execution of the NDA. Unknown. Please respond at your earliest convenience. Time-sensitive matter. Unknown. Ms. Chun, your lack of response is noted. I'll be in contact again this afternoon. $50,000. Zara's hand shook as she reread the message. That was more money than she'd ever seen in her life. Enough to start over. Enough to get an apartment, buy a car, have a cushion while she figured out her next steps. Enough to make her disappear quietly, the way the Whitmores wanted. She was staring at her phone, trying to process what it meant that they were willing to pay her to stay silent, when another message came through. This time from a number she recognized, Madison. Madison. I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to sign those papers. Mom's having her charity luncheon next week, and she can't have this hanging over her head. Just take the money and move on. It's more than you deserve anyway. Before Zara could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number again. Against her better judgment, she answered. Hello. Ms. Chun, James Morrison. I'm glad I caught you. The lawyer's voice was smooth, practiced. I wanted to follow up on my messages. Have you had a chance to consider the offer? I need time to think about it. Of course. However, I should mention that the offer is time-sensitive. The Whitmore family is prepared to be generous, but that generosity has limits. If we can't reach an agreement by end of business today, the offer may be reduced or withdrawn entirely. Pressure tactics. Zara recognized them even through the haze of exhaustion and emotion. I'm not signing anything without having a lawyer review it first. That's certainly your right, Morrison said, his tone suggesting it was an unnecessary complication. However, I should be transparent with you about the alternatives. The Whitmore family has documentation of significant financial support provided to you over the years. Housing, food, clothing, educational expenses. If this matter were to become contentious, they would be within their rights to seek partial reimbursement for those expenses. Zara's stomach dropped. Reimbursement? They adopted me. That was their responsibility. Legally speaking, once you reach the age of 18, their obligation ended. The subsequent 5 years of support could be characterized as voluntary assistance that, in the absence of a mutual agreement, could potentially be recouped. He paused, letting that sink in. I'm not saying they would pursue such action. I'm simply outlining the legal landscape. The NDA represents a much cleaner solution for everyone involved. Are you threatening me? Zara's voice was shaking now, but with anger rather than fear. Not at all. I'm simply ensuring you understand the full picture before making your decision. His voice softened, became almost paternal. Ms. Chun, Zara, the Whitmore family wants to part ways amicably. They're offering you a substantial sum to facilitate that. Why make this difficult? Take the money, start your life, and leave the past behind. Isn't that what you want? It was what she'd told me she wanted. To disappear. To stop existing in the Whitmore's world entirely. But hearing this lawyer, hired by the people who'd raised her for 15 years, calmly discuss suing her for the cost of feeding and housing her as a child felt like a violation so profound she couldn't breathe. I need to go, she managed. I'll need an answer by 5 p.m. today. Otherwise, she hung up. For a long moment, Zara sat frozen on the edge of bed, her phone clutched in her trembling hands. Then she was moving, grabbing clothes, stuffing things back into her bags with numb, mechanical movements. She had to leave, had to get out before Julian woke up and saw her like this, before he tried to fix this with his money and his lawyers and made everything more complicated. She'd signed the NDA, take the money, disappear. It was the cleanest solution, the easiest path forward, the only path forward. She was halfway to the door, bags in hand, when Julian appeared in the hallway. He was barefoot, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair disheveled from sleep. He looked at her at the bags, and his expression shifted from confused to devastated. Z, what are you doing? I have to go. Her voice came out flat, detached. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come here. What happened? He moved toward her, but she stepped back. Zara, talk to me. What's going on? Her phone buzzed. Another text from Madison. Madison, Mom just told me they're prepared to file a civil suit if you don't cooperate. You really want to drag this out? You'll lose, and you'll look pathetic trying. Just sign the damn papers. Julian's eyes tracked her phone, catching part of the message before she could lock the screen. Is that from them? Zara, what are they saying to you? It doesn't matter. She tried to move past him, but he gently caught her arm. It clearly does matter. You were fine last night. Something changed. Let me help. You can't help. The words exploded out of her. Don't you understand? You can't fix this. Your money, your lawyers, your influence, none of it matters. They're going to destroy me either way. Either I sign their NDA and disappear quietly, or they sue me for the cost of raising me like I was some kind of financial burden they're entitled to recoup. Julian's face went pale. They said that? They actually threatened to. Their lawyer did. Very professionally. Very politely. Zara laughed, but was bitter and broken. Turns out the 5 years of support after I turned 18 could be characterized as voluntary assistance subject to reimbursement. How much do you think it costs to house and feed someone for 5 years in a place like the Whitmore estate? More than I'll ever have. More than I could pay back in a lifetime. That's not. They can't actually. Julian was struggling for words, fury and disbelief warring on his face. Zara, that's extortion. No judge would. Wouldn't they? She pulled free from his grip. They're the Whitmores. Established family. Respected in the community. Charitable reputation. I'm the adopted kid who aged out and couldn't even maintain a relationship with the people who saved me from the system. Who do you think a judge is going to sympathize with? This is insane. You know that, right? This is reality. Zara's voice cracked. My reality. The reality I've been living my entire life. People like the Whitmores always win. People like me. She stopped, swallowing against a sob, threatening to escape. People like me learn to take what we're offered and disappear. So what? You just gonna run? Sign away your right to tell the truth about what they did to you. Julian's voice was harder now, frustration bleeding through. Take their hush money and pretend 15 years of emotional abuse never happened? Yes. The word came out savage. Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because fighting them means dragging you into this mess. It means lawyers and court dates and media attention and all the things you don't need in your life. It means being the poor girlfriend who brought drama and scandal to Julian Chen's doorstep. I don't care about any of that. Well, I do. Tears were streaming down her face now. I care, Julian. I care that Christine was right. I care that I'm exactly what she always said I was. Someone who latches onto people and takes until there's nothing left. I moved into your house after knowing you for 2 years. I'm crying on your shoulder about family drama. Now I'm going to drag you into a legal battle with wealthy, vindictive people who will make both our lives hell just to prove a point. Zara, you deserve better than this. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You deserve better than me. The silence that followed was deafening. Julian stood there, looking at her like she'd physically struck him. Is that what you really think? He finally said, his voice carefully controlled. That you're some kind of burden I'm tolerating out of pity? I think, Zara's voice broke, I think everyone I've ever loved has decided I wasn't worth the trouble. And I think I'd rather leave now, on my terms, than wait for you to reach the same conclusion. That's not fair. None of this is fair. She was shouting now, 2 days of grief and fear and shame pouring out. It wasn't fair that my parents died. It wasn't fair that I got shuffled through foster homes. It wasn't fair that the Whitmores treated me like a temporary house guest for 15 years. And it's not fair that I'm standing here pushing away the one person who actually seems to give a damn about me, because I'm too broken to believe I deserve it. The words hung in the air between them, raw and terrible and true. So that's it. Julian's voice was quiet now, almost hollow. You're going to let them win? Let them convince you that you're disposable, that you're not worth fighting for. I'm being realistic. You're being a coward. The word hit like a slap. Zara stared at him, and for a moment, she saw something she'd never seen before in Julian's eyes. Disappointment. Maybe I am, she whispered, but at least I won't drag you down with me. She picked up her bags and walked toward the door. Julian didn't try to stop her this time, didn't call after her. The silence was worse than any argument could have been. Zara made it to the front door before the sobs came, but she kept walking, kept moving, because if she stopped, if she turned around and saw the look on his face, she'd break completely, and she couldn't afford a break. Not when she had papers to sign and a life to disappear from. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like an ending. Zara sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks from Julian's house, staring at her phone. She'd called an Uber, but then canceled it. Called another, canceled again. She had nowhere to go. May was at work. The money from the Whitmores wasn't in her account yet. Wouldn't be until she signed. And going back to Julian's felt impossible after the things she'd said. You deserve better than me. You're being a coward. Both statements circling each other in her mind like fighters in a ring. Her phone buzzed. The lawyer. Morrison, Ms. Chun, I'm at the Starbucks on Madison and 5th with the paperwork. If you're able to meet me within the hour, we can finalize everything today. The funds will be transferred immediately upon execution. Madison and 5th, 2 blocks away. Zara's finger hovered over the keyboard. One word. Okay, and this would all be over. She could take the money, find an apartment, start over somewhere new, maybe a different city entirely. Somewhere the Whitmore name meant nothing. where she could be just Zara, not the adopted daughter they discarded. She typed the word, stared at it, deleted it. Her phone rang. Not Morrison, not Madison, not Julian. May, tell me you're not about to do something stupid. May said without preamble. How did you? Julian called me, said you left, said you're planning to sign the NDA. May's voice was tight with controlled fury. Please tell me that's not true. Zara closed her eyes. He called you a coward. Good. You're being one. May. No, listen to me. I love you. Z. You're my best friend, my sister in every way that matters. But you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life because you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm being practical. You're terrified. May cut her off. You're so scared of being abandoned that you're abandoning Julian first. You're so scared of being seen as a burden that you're willing to let the Whitmores erase you completely. That's not practical. Z. That's trauma making your decision for you. Zara's throat constricted. They're going to sue me if I don't sign. They're going to claim I owe them for the years they supported me as an adult. May, I can't fight that. I don't have the resources. But Julian does. Exactly. And that's the problem. I can't let him bankrupt himself fighting my battles. Bankrupt. May laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Z, do you have any idea how much money Julian actually has? The Whitmore's entire net worth is probably what he makes in interest in a month. This isn't David versus Goliath. This is two Goliaths, and you're standing next to the one who actually loves you, refusing to let him help. It's not about the money. You're right. It's about your worth. May's voice softened. You think if you need help, if you accept support, it means you're weak or broken or unlovable. But Z, that's what they programmed into you. The Whitmores, the system, everyone who made you feel like asking for help was admitting you were a burden. Zara was crying now, silent tears dripping onto the sticky coffee shop table. What if he realizes I'm not worth it? What if he fights for me and then decides? Then at least you'll know you were brave enough to let someone try. May paused. Do you love him? Yes. The word came out broken, but certain. God, yes. Then stop punishing him for caring about you. Stop punishing yourself for being human. Across the coffee shop, Zara caught her reflection in a mirror. Mascara-stained face. Rumpled clothes she'd slept in. Hair unbrushed. She looked exactly like the girl sitting on the curb 2 days ago. Lost, disposable, temporary. But she didn't have to be that girl anymore. I have to go, Zara said suddenly. Where? I have to. I need to see someone. She hung up before May could respond. Morrison was exactly where he said he'd be. Laptop open, expensive suit immaculate. He looked up as Zara approached, a practiced smile sliding onto his face. Ms. Chun, thank you for coming. Please sit. He gestured to the chair across from him. I have the documents ready for your review and signature. As discussed, the compensation will be transferred within the hour. No. Morrison's smile faltered. I'm sorry. No, I'm not signing. Zara's voice was steadier than she'd expected. You can tell the Whitmores that if they want to sue me for the cost of raising me, they're welcome to try. I'll see them in court. Ms. Chun, I don't think you understand the implications. I understand perfectly. She leaned forward. They want me silent. They want to pretend I never existed, that 15 years of emotional manipulation and conditional love never happened. They want to pay me off and make me disappear. The family is simply trying to move forward. By threatening to financially destroy me if I don't cooperate, Zara's voice hardened. That's not moving forward. That's abuse. And I'm done being abused by the Whitmore family. Morrison's professional mask slipped, showing irritation beneath. You're making a mistake. The legal fees alone will bankrupt you. The Whitmores have resources you can't begin to match. But I have something they don't. Zara stood. I have the truth, and I have people who love me enough to stand beside me while I tell it. She walked out of the Starbucks, her heart pounding but her head clear for the first time in days. She had one more stop to make. Julian's house looked different in the midday sun. Less imposing. More like a home. Zara stood at the door for a full minute before she found the courage to ring the bell. She half expected him not to answer, to have written her off as too complicated, too damaged, too much trouble. The door opened. Julian stood there, and the look on his face, relief and hurt and hope all tangled together, nearly broke her. "I didn't sign," she said before he could speak. "I told them no. And I'm probably going to be sued for an amount of money I can't even conceptualize. And it's going to be messy and public and complicated. And you were right. I was being a coward." He pulled her inside and kissed her. It was desperate and fierce, and tasted like salt from both their tears. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "I'm sorry," Zara whispered against his lips. "I'm sorry for what I said, for running, for thinking you'd be better off without me. I'm sorry for calling you a coward." Julian's hands framed her face. "You're the bravest person I know. I was frustrated and scared, and I said something cruel. It was true." She pulled back enough to look at him. "I was being a coward. I was so scared of needing you that I almost walked away from the best thing in my life. You can need me, Z. You're allowed to need people. That's not weakness." "I know. Or at least," she took a shaky breath, "I'm trying to know. I'm trying to believe that letting you help me doesn't make me a burden. You could never be a burden to me." Julian's thumb traced a line of her cheekbone. "Do you trust me?" "Yes." "Then trust me when I say we're going to fight this. Together. And we're going to win." "Julian, they're powerful. They have connections and money and I have more of all of that," he said simply, "plus something they'll never have. I'm fighting for someone I love, not protecting a reputation built on lies." Zara felt something settle in her chest. Not peace, not yet, but possibility. The fragile, terrifying hope that maybe she didn't have to face this alone. "I'll need a lawyer," she said. "I've already made some calls. The best civil rights attorney in the state. She specializes in cases against wealthy families who abuse their power." "Of course you have." Despite everything, Zara felt a smile tug at her lips. "I also may have contacted a few journalists who are very interested in stories about prominent families and adoption fraud." His expression turned serious. "But only if you want that. This is your story, Z. Your choice how to tell it or if to tell it at all. I'll support whatever you decide." "I want to tell it." The words surprised her, but once she said them, she knew they were true. "I want people to know what they did. Not for revenge, but because there might be other kids in situations like mine. Other adopted children being treated like props instead of people. If my story helps even one of them." She didn't finish. Couldn't. The emotion was too overwhelming. Julian pulled her close, and she let herself sink into his embrace. Let herself be held. Let herself need. "What happens now?" she whispered into his chest. Now we fight. But first you eat something. You look like you haven't had a real meal in days." "I haven't." "Then that's where we start." He kissed the top of her head. One step at a time. One day at a time. Together. Together. The word didn't scare her anymore. Outside, storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. There would be battles ahead. Legal, emotional, public. The Whitmores wouldn't go quietly. This was far from over. But standing in Julian's arms, Zara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Ready. Ready to fight. Ready to be seen. Ready to stop making herself small for people who would never truly see her anyway. She'd spent her whole life trying to earn love through perfection. Maybe it was time to try something different. Maybe it was time to simply be loved. Messy, complicated, imperfect, and whole. 3 days later, Zara stood in front of a mirror in Julian's bedroom, adjusting the collar of a navy blazer she'd bought that morning. Behind her, May was pacing, muttering under her breath about entitled narcissists and karmic justice. "You don't have to do this," Julian said from the doorway. "We can handle this entirely through lawyers. You don't owe them a face-to-face meeting." But Zara did. Not for them, for herself. The Whitmores had requested a private meeting before any legal proceedings began, to discuss this matter like adults. Christine had said to her attorney, as if the past week hadn't happened, as if she hadn't thrown her adopted daughter out like trash. Zara had agreed to meet, but on her terms, not at the Whitmore estate, not in some sterile lawyer's office. Here, at Julian's house, with her people surrounding her. "I need to do this," Zara said, meeting Julian's eyes in the mirror. "I need to look them in the face and tell them I'm done being afraid." The doorbell rang. May squeezed Zara's hand. "Remember, you don't owe them anything. Not explanations, not absolution, nothing." "I know." But knowing and feeling were different things. As Zara walked down the stairs toward the foyer, her heart hammered against her ribs. Julian walked beside her, a steady presence, while May followed behind like a tiny, fierce bodyguard. Christine and Richard Whitmore stood in the entryway, looking around Julian's home with barely concealed assessment. Madison was there too, arms crossed, expression already bored. Blair, the prodigal daughter whose return had triggered everything, was noticeably absent. Christine's eyes landed on Zara, and for just a moment, something flickered across her face. Regret? Guilt? But it was gone so quickly Zara might have imagined it. "Zara." Christine's voice was carefully modulated, the same tone she'd use at charity luncheons. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. We were hoping we could resolve this misunderstanding privately as a family." "We're not a family." The words came out stronger than Zara had expected. "We never were." Christine's lips thinned. "Zara, you're being dramatic. We raised you for 15 years. "You housed me for 15 years, Zara corrected. "You fed me and clothed me and made sure I looked presentable at your social functions. But you never treated me like family. I was a project, a tax write-off, a way to boost your social standing." "That's not fair," Richard started, but Zara cut him off. "Isn't it? When was the last time you had a real conversation with me? Richard? When was the last time you asked about my life, my dreams, anything beyond whether I'd embarrass you in public?" She turned Christine. "You introduced me as our adopted daughter for 15 years. Never just our daughter, always with that qualifier, making sure everyone knew I wasn't really yours. We were proud of adopting you," Christine began. "You were proud of the optics of adopting me," Zara interrupted. "There's a difference. And the moment I stopped being useful, the moment Blair needed my room, you threw me out without a second thought." Madison scoffed. "Oh, please. You're making this sound so tragic. We gave you opportunities you never would have had otherwise. Private schools, a nice home, connections. And you never let me forget it." Zara's voice was quiet but steady. "Every time I accomplished something, it was because of what you'd given me. Every time I struggled, it was because I was ungrateful. I spent 15 years trying to earn your love, trying to be perfect enough to finally be seen as your real daughter. And it was never enough. This is exactly the kind of manipulation." Christine started, but Julian stepped forward. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'd be very careful about your next words." His voice was cold, professional. "You're in my home, speaking to the woman I love, and I have very little patience for gaslighting." Christine's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Chun, I understand Zara has painted us as villains in whatever story she's told you, but there are two sides. I've heard your side." Julian pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. "Morrison, your attorney, laid it out very clearly. Sign an NDA or face a lawsuit for voluntary assistance render post-majority. That's your side. Extortion dressed up in legal language." "We have every right to seek reimbursement," Richard began. "Actually, you don't." A new voice came from the hallway. A woman in her 50s, elegant in a steel gray suit, walked into the foyer. "I'm Rebecca Morrison, no relation to your attorney, and I specialize in adoption law and family rights. I've reviewed the case, and I can promise you that no judge in the state will look favorably on biological parents suing their adopted child for the cost of raising her." Christine's composure cracked slightly. "Who are you?" "Zara, you brought a lawyer to a family meeting." "You brought a lawyer to her entire life," Rebecca said smoothly. "Your attorney has been sending threatening messages for days. I'm simply here to ensure my client understands her rights, which include the right to tell her story without legal retaliation. If she spreads lies about this family," Madison started. Truth isn't defamation, Rebecca countered. And I've seen the documentation. Text messages, emails, witness statements from people who observed the family dynamic over the years. If this goes to court, I can assure you the Whitmore family reputation will suffer far more than Ms. Chen's. The silence that followed was heavy. Zara watched the Whitmores process this new reality, that she wasn't alone, wasn't powerless, wasn't going to disappear quietly. "What do you want?" Christine finally asked, and for the first time, her carefully constructed facade showed cracks. "Money? More money than we offered." "I don't want your money." Zara's voice was clear. "I want you to leave me alone. No lawsuits. No NDAs. No more attempts to control my narrative. I want you to walk away and let me live my life." "And in exchange?" Richard asked. "In exchange, I won't pursue legal action against you for emotional abuse and manipulation of a minor." Rebecca's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "I won't file a complaint with the state adoption agency detailing how you use the adoption system for social benefit. And I won't encourage the 3 journalists who have contacted me about this story to proceed with their investigations." Christine went pale. "You're blackmailing us." "I'm offering you the same deal you offered Zara," Rebecca said. "Mutual silence. You leave her alone, and she leaves you alone. The difference is she's doing it without requiring payment or legal documents. She's simply asking you to do what you should have done all along. Respect her autonomy." Madison looked at her parents. "We should disagree. Let her go. It's not worth the hassle." "Hassle?" Zara laughed, bitter and broken. "That's what I am to you. All of you. Not a daughter. Not a sister. Just a hassle you're ready to be done with." For the first time, Christine had no response. Richard cleared his throat. "Fine. We agree to your terms. Mutual silence. No legal action from either side." "Dad," Madison protested. "Enough." Richard's voice was sharp. "This has already gone too far. We agree. Zara goes her way. We go ours. It's over. It's over." The words should have felt like victory. Instead, they felt like the final, irrevocable severing of a cord that had never been strong enough to hold her anyway. "Rebecca will draw up a simple agreement documenting our understanding," Julian said. "Non-disparagement on both sides. No legal action. Clean break." "Fine." Christine was already moving toward the door, her mask firmly back in place. "I hope you're happy, Zara. I hope whatever you think you've gained here was worth destroying a family." "I didn't destroy anything." Zara's voice was steady. "You did at the moment you decided I was temporary." The Whitmores left without another word. Madison didn't even look back. As the door closed behind them, Zara felt her knees buckle. Julian caught her immediately, pulling her against him as 15 years of tension finally released in racking sobs. "I've got you," he murmured. "I've got you. You did it. You were amazing. I feel like I'm going to throw up." Zara managed through tears. "That's the adrenaline," Rebecca said kindly, packing up her briefcase. "Perfectly normal. You handled yourself beautifully, Ms. Chun. Most people crumble in confrontations with their abusers. You stood your ground." May appeared with water and tissues, already crying herself. "I'm so proud of you, Z. So damn proud." They moved to the living room, Zara sandwiched between Julian and May on the couch, while Rebecca explained the next steps. The agreement would be formalized within the week. After that, the Whitmores would be legally obligated to leave Zara alone. "What if they violate it?" Zara asked, her voice small. "Then we take them to court, and they face consequences," Rebecca said firmly. "But I don't think they will. The Whitmores are more concerned with their reputation than with you. Now that they know you have resources and support, they'll move on." After Rebecca left, the 3 of them sat in silence for a long moment. "What happens now?" Zara finally asked. Julian pulled her closer. "Now you heal. You figure out what you want your life to look like without them in it. You stop living in reaction to their expectations and start living for yourself." "I don't know who I am without them," Zara admitted. "I've spent so long trying to be what they wanted. I don't know what I want." "Then we figure out," May said, "together. What do you want to do? Travel? Go to grad school? Become professional cheese taster? The world is open, Z. Zara stopped, thinking. I want to help other kids like me. Adopted kids, foster kids. I want them to know they're not alone. Julian smiled. Then that's what we'll do. 6 months later, Zara stood in front of a room full of social workers, foster parents, and adoption advocates, her hands only slightly trembling as she held the microphone. My name is Zara Chun, she began, and I'm an adult adoptee with a complicated story. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. She'd started therapy, real therapy, with a specialist in adoption trauma. She'd moved into her own apartment, one she'd chosen herself, paid for with money from a job at a youth advocacy nonprofit that Julian had connected her with. She started speaking publicly about her experience, first in small support groups, then at conferences, now at events like this one. Her story, carefully crafted to focus on systemic issues rather than individual blame, had resonated with thousands of people. The Whitmores had stayed silent, as agreed, but Zara's voice had grown louder. I want to talk today about something we don't discuss enough in the adoption community, Zara continued. The difference between providing for a child and truly seeing them, between legal family and emotional family. In the back of the room, Julian leaned against the wall, watching her with undisguised pride. Beside him, May was filming on her phone, determined to capture every moment. After the speech, after the applause and the people who came up to thank her for her honesty, Julian pulled her aside. There's something I want to show you, he said, his eyes dancing with barely contained excitement. He led her outside to where a car was waiting. They drove for 20 minutes to a building downtown, a beautiful old warehouse that had been converted into modern office space. What is this? Zara asked as they walked inside. This, Julian said, opening a door to reveal a space filled with natural light and potential, is yours, if you want it. Zara stared. Julian, what? I know you've been talking about starting a nonprofit, a support organization for adoptees and foster youth, mentorship programs, legal resources, counseling services. He gestured around the empty space. This could be your headquarters. It's yours, no strings attached. Whether you want to use it for the nonprofit or something else entirely, it's yours. I can't accept. Before you finish that sentence, Julian interrupted gently. Remember what we talked about letting people who love you support your dreams. This isn't me trying to fix you or save you. This is me investing in something I believe in, something you believe in. Zara walked through the space, imagining it filled with hope, teens who needed to know they weren't alone, adults still processing childhood trauma, resources that could have helped her when she was sitting on that curb 6 months ago, believing she was disposable. Okay, she whispered. Yeah. She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were different. Happy tears, grateful tears, tears of possibility instead of pain. Let's do this. Let's help people. Julian crossed the space and pulled her into his arms. I love you, Zarchin. Your past, your present, your future, all of it. I love you too. She pulled back to look at him. Thank you for not giving up on me, for fighting when I wanted to run, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Always, he promised. Through the window, the sun was setting over the city, painting everything in gold. 6 months ago, Zara had sat on a curb outside the Whitmore estate, convinced she was worthless, convinced she was unlovable, convinced her story ended in abandonment. She'd been wrong. Her story was just beginning. 1 year later, the Chun Foundation for Adoptee Support opened its doors on a crisp autumn morning. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was small, intimate. No press, no fanfare, just the people who mattered. May gave a speech about chosen family that left everyone crying. The mayor said a few words about the importance of community support. And Zara, standing beside Julian with his hand in hers, welcomed the first group of teens into the space that would become their haven. Among the crowd, Zara noticed a woman standing at the back, late 50s, elegant, watching with an expression Zara couldn't quite read. When the ceremony ended, the woman approached. Zara, her voice was hesitant. I'm Christine's sister, your adoptive aunt. I suppose, though we never really met. I wanted to come and say—" She paused, searching for words. "I wanted to say I'm sorry. For what my sister did. For what the whole family did. It wasn't right." Zara felt Julian tense beside her, protective, but she squeezed his hand. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means more than you know." The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "What you're doing here, it matters. Keep going." She left before Zara could respond. "Are you okay?" Julian asked quietly. Zara watched the woman disappear into the crowd, then looked around at the space filled with hope and possibility. At May, already herding teens toward the art therapy room. At the volunteers who'd shown up to help. At the life she'd built from the ashes of the one that had burned down. "Yeah," she said, and meant it. "I'm more than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Julian kissed her temple. "Then let's get to work." And they did. Have you ever had to choose between staying in a toxic situation for the sake of family or walking away to protect yourself? What helped you make that decision? Share your story in the comments. Someone might need to hear it.
Wow, thank you so much for watching. Seriously, your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed this video, the biggest way you can show me love and encourage me to keep creating is to hit that like button and subscribe. Takes 1 second, but it makes a huge difference. Speaking of more videos, I've got another exciting one lined up for you. Just click on the next video showing right on your screen now to keep the fun going. See you there.